Yul Brynner walked onto the Broadway stage at exactly 8:02 p.m. No one saw the blood soaking through the bandages beneath his golden robes. June 30th, 1985. Virginia Theater. Monday night. 1,400 people packed into red velvet seats, all there to witness history. The King and I. Performance number 4, 625. The legendary Yul Brynner, bald head gleaming under stage lights, arms spread wide in that iconic pose everyone had come to see. The King of Siam. Immortal, untouchable, perfect. Except his lungs were drowning. His ribs were fractured in 17 places. And 3 hours earlier, he'd vomited so much blood in his dressing room that the basin looked like a murder scene. The orchestra swelled. Brynner opened his mouth and sang with a voice so clear, so powerful, that not one person in that audience suspected they were watching a dying man perform a miracle. Sarah Chen stood in the wings, 23 years old, fresh out of Juilliard, clipboard trembling in her hands. This was her first real job in professional theater, and she'd been told it would be easy. The King and I was a well-oiled machine, 8 years on Broadway. Everyone knew their marks. Nothing ever went wrong. She had no idea she was about to witness the greatest act of human will in theatrical history. Because 3 months earlier, in a sterile Park Avenue medical office, Dr. Mitchell Carlin had delivered a death sentence with the clinical precision of a man who'd done it 1,000 times before. Stage 4, lung cancer. Metastasized to liver, bones, brain. 6 months, maybe less. Stop performing immediately. Begin hospice arrangements. Say goodbye. Brynner had listened without expression, those coal black eyes revealing nothing, and then asked a single question. How many performances can I complete before I physically cannot stand? Dr. Carlin had stared at him, trying to process the question. Not how long do I have? Not what are my treatment options? But how many more times can I perform? YUL, you're not understanding the severity. I understand perfectly. I have 492 performances remaining in my contract. I've played this role 4,133 times. I promised myself 5,000 performances before I retire. Now tell me, can I physically make it to 5,000, or will my body fail before then? The doctor's face had gone pale. Your body is already failing. The tumors in your lungs are the size of golf balls. Your liver is compromised. Your bones are deteriorating. You should be bedridden within weeks. Performing is absolutely out of the question. Brynner had stood, buttoned his jacket with those precise, controlled movements that defined everything about him, and said 7 words that would haunt Dr. Carlin for the rest of his career. Then I'll die on stage at 5,000. No anger, no despair, just absolute certainty. And now, 12 weeks later, Sarah watched from the wings as Brynner danced across the stage with Mary Beth Peale, his Anna, spinning her through the iconic Shall We Dance number with the grace and strength of a man in perfect health. The audience was mesmerized. Critics in the third row were taking notes, already composing reviews about Brynner's timeless vitality and undiminished power. None of them saw what Sarah saw the moment Brynner exited stage left into the shadows. His perfect posture collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. He grabbed the brick wall with both hands, gasping, face contorted in agony so pure that Sarah felt it in her own chest. His legs buckled. For 3 seconds he couldn't breathe at all, just stood there suffocating, dying, while the orchestra played and the audience applauded beyond the curtain. Sarah started toward him, but his hand shot up. Stop, don't touch, don't acknowledge. And she froze, watched as Brynner forced air into his collapsing lungs through sheer will, watched as he counted silently, lips moving, 20 seconds until his next entrance, 15 seconds. He pushed himself upright using only the wall and muscles that should have given out months ago, 10 seconds. The mask returned to his face, piece by piece, like watching a machine reassemble itself. 5 seconds. The King of Siam emerged from Yul Brynner's dying body. 0. He walked back onto that stage like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just been on his knees, drowning in his own failing body. And when his voice filled the theater, strong, commanding, perfect, Sarah understood something that would change her forever. This wasn't acting anymore. This was something beyond performance. This was a man making his body obey through pure discipline, pure will, pure refusal to surrender, until he decided it was time. The stage manager, Tom Becker, had been working Broadway for 15 years. Vietnam veteran. 2 tours. Saw men die in rice paddies and jungle clearings. Thought he understood what courage looked like under impossible circumstances. But June 1985 taught him he'd understood nothing. During intermission, Brynner's voice came through the headset, calm as discussing the weather. "Tom, clear my dressing room. Everyone out. 5 minutes of privacy." Tom cleared the corridor, posted himself outside Brynner's door like he was guarding a president, and waited. For 2 minutes, silence. Then a sound that made every hair on Tom's body stand up. Violent retching, wet and desperate. The sound of a body trying to expel death itself. It went on for 90 seconds. Then stopped. Complete silence. Tom's hand was on the doorknob, every instinct screaming to check, to help, to do something. But he knew that acknowledging Brynner's weakness would be worse than letting him suffer. Because men like Yul Brynner didn't want help. They wanted to be left alone to endure. 3 minutes later, the door opened. Brynner emerged, makeup pristine, costume perfect, face absolutely calm. "Act 2 places, please." His voice was steady, professional, revealing nothing. But Tom noticed his hands. Those famously controlled hands were shaking like leaves in a hurricane. "YUL, maybe we should call the show." "Places, Tom." Not a request. An order. Delivered with the quiet authority of a man who'd spent his entire life refusing to bend. Tom gave the call. The show continued. And later, when Tom went into that dressing room to turn off the lights, he found the evidence Brynner had tried to hide. A wastebasket filled with blood-soaked towels, stuffed under other trash like a guilty secret. Tom cleaned it himself, never told anyone, because some things were too sacred to report. Some acts of courage were too private to share. Mary Beth Peel had been playing Anna opposite Brynner for 3 years. Knew his body like a dancer, knows their partners, every tension, every adjustment, every microscopic change in balance. On June 25th, during Shall We Dance, she felt something wrong. His grip on her waist tightened desperately, not with passion but with need, like he was holding her to stay upright. She glanced at his face and saw sweat that wasn't performance sweat. This was cold, sick sweat, pain sweat. "YUL?" she whispered, barely audible over the music. "Keep dancing." They finished the number. The audience erupted. Brynner released her, bowed with that $1,000,000 smile, and walked off stage with the bearing of a king. Mary Beth heard him fall 5 seconds later. She ran into the wings and found him on his knees, one hand pressed to his chest, the other braced against the floor, trying not to collapse completely. "Jesus, YUL. Don't stop the show." His voice was iron. "Don't call a doctor. Don't tell anyone. You need help. I need 17 more minutes. 3 scenes, 1 song. I can do 17 minutes. He pushed himself up, using the wall, using willpower, using something beyond human biology. Mary Beth watched his legs shake, watched his face go gray, watched a dying man somehow stand upright through pure refusal to fall. "YUL, you can barely..." "I've stood for 65 years. I can stand for 17 more minutes." And he did. Walked back onto that stage and performed with such presence, such power, that Mary Beth, who knew the truth, could barely believe what she was seeing. This wasn't possible. The human body couldn't do this. But Brynner wasn't just human anymore. He'd become something else. Something made of discipline and determination, and the absolute refusal to break a promise. Sarah started keeping a private journal, not official notes but personal observations, because she understood she was witnessing something that would never happen again. June 26th. Mr. Brynner vomited blood before curtain. Performed flawlessly. Audience suspected nothing. June 27th. Heard him crying in his dressing room during intermission. Only time I've heard emotion from him. Stopped before anyone else could hear. June 28th. Lost more weight. Costume department took in his robes again. Third time this month. He told them he's on a new diet. June 29th. Missed his mark during a puzzlement for the first time ever. Covered it so smoothly the audience didn't notice, but I did. June 30th. He can barely walk between entrances. Uses the walls for support, but on stage, he's perfect. How is this possible? The costume designer, Patricia Ziprot, noticed the blood in early July. Not visible blood. She'd never have let him perform if the audience could see it, but internal staining in the linings of his golden robes. When she collected them for cleaning after each show, they were soaked. Inside, where no camera would catch it, where no audience member would ever know. She confronted him on July 1st, brought the evidence to his dressing room, laid it out like a prosecutor presenting a case. YUL, you're bleeding. Into your costumes. You need medical attention immediately. Brynner looked at the stained fabric, looked at her, and said 3 words that stopped her cold. I'm dying, Patricia. No drama, no emotion, just fact. She sat down hard, legs giving out. What? Lung cancer, metastasized. Weeks left, maybe days. I'm going to reach 5,000 performances, and then I'm going to die. In that order. I need you not to tell anyone. Please. Patricia wanted to argue, wanted to call an ambulance, wanted to do something other than enable this insanity. But looking at Brynner's face, that controlled, certain face, she understood this wasn't about saving him. This was about letting him finish his way. How many performances left? 375. Can you make it? I have to. July became August became September, and each performance cost more than the last. Sarah watched him lose weight so rapidly that the costumes had to be altered weekly. Watched his skin turn gray, then yellow, then a translucent shade that made him look like a ghost playing a king. Watched him forget his blocking for the first time in 30 years, then cover it so smoothly only she noticed. Watched him hold the wall between every entrance, breathing like he'd just run a marathon, only to walk on stage and perform with a strength that defied medical possibility. On September 5th, performance 4, 952, Tom Becker found Brynner unconscious on his dressing room floor, blood pooling from his mouth, body completely unresponsive. Tom called 911. Paramedics arrived within 6 minutes, started emergency treatment, prepared to transport him to the hospital. Brynner woke up while they were loading him onto the stretcher and asked a single question. What time is it? Mr. Brynner, you need immediate. What time is it? 7:15, sir. Curtain is at 8. Get out of my dressing room. The paramedics looked at Tom. Tom looked at Brynner. He's serious. Sir, you're dying. I know, but not until performance 5,000. Now get out. They left. Wrote in their report, patient refused transport. Competent, but irrational. Brynner got up, put on his costume, did his makeup, and at 8:02 p.m. walked onto the stage. Performed for 2 hours and 11 minutes. Perfect. Tom wrote in his private journal that night, I don't know how he's still standing. Medically impossible. But Brynner isn't medical. He's willpower made flesh. Tonight he performed with a 103-degree fever, drenched in sweat, shaking between scenes. But for those 2 hours on stage, he was healthy, strong. The king. I've seen men in combat do impossible things, seen soldiers fight with mortal wounds. But I've never seen anything like this. He's not fighting to live, he's fighting to finish. And somehow, that's more powerful. September 28th, performance 4, 999, 1 performance left. Brynner could barely see. The cancer had spread to his brain, creating hallucinations and double vision. But his body knew this show like breathing. 30 years of muscle memory carried him through. The audience gave him a 10-minute standing ovation. He stood center stage, soaking it in, knowing this was the second to last time he'd ever hear it. Backstage, Sarah heard him whisper to himself, one more, just one more. September 29th, 1985. Performance 5,000. The theater was packed beyond legal capacity, fire marshals turning a blind eye because everyone in New York wanted to witness this. The culmination, the completion, the impossible promise kept. Sarah watched Brynner walk to the stage entrance. He stopped, turned to her and said, "If I fall, let me finish the scene before you call anyone," she promised. He walked onto that stage, and for 2 hours and 11 minutes, Yul Brynner wasn't dying. He was the king. Critics who'd seen him hundreds of times said it was his finest performance. Every line perfect, every gesture iconic. Mary Beth felt him trembling during Shall We Dance, felt his weight shifting wrong, felt him dying in her arms. But his feet never stopped moving, his voice never failed. The audience erupted. Brynner bowed, deep, respectful, final, and the curtain fell. He walked off stage and collapsed into Sarah's arms. "I did it. You did it. Call the ambulance now." They took him to Memorial Sloan Kettering. The doctors examined him and looked at each other with expressions Sarah would never forget. Horror, mixed with respect, mixed with complete disbelief. Dr. Carlin pulled her aside later and said, "His ribs are fractured in 17 places. His lungs are at 15% capacity. He has tumors the size of golf balls in his liver. His spine is deteriorating. He should have been bedridden 3 months ago. What he just did is medically impossible." "I watched it happen," Sarah said quietly. "That man just performed the greatest act of will in medical history, and nobody will ever believe it." Yul Brynner died 11 days later, October 10th, 1985, 65 years old. His final words to his family were, "I finished." His final request, "Tell them I made it to 5,000. The story stayed quiet for years. Sarah never spoke. Too sacred. Tom never spoke. Military honor. Mary Beth never spoke. Respect for a partner who gave everything. But in 1995, during a documentary about Brynner's life, Sarah finally told the truth, showed her journals, shared the medical records that Dr. Carlin unsealed, explained that Yul Brynner had performed 500 shows while dying, bleeding into his costumes, collapsing backstage, and refusing to quit until he chose to. The blood-stained costumes were eventually donated to the Smithsonian. Conservation analysis proved everything. He'd been hemorrhaging internally for months. The Smithsonian created an exhibit called Discipline: The Final Performances of Yul Brynner. The opening text read, "What you are about to see is not the story of an actor dying. It is the story of a human being choosing how to die." In 2015, Sarah Chen, now one of Broadway's most respected stage managers, was asked about her defining moment in theater. "Watching Yul Brynner die for 500 performances while never missing a cue, he taught me that discipline isn't about comfort, it's about commitment. Real commitment means finishing what you start, even when every cell in your body is screaming to stop." People talk about Brynner being difficult, being demanding, being a tyrant, but I watched him demand more from himself than anyone else. That's not tyranny, that's heroism. Tom Becker's final journal entry, September 29, 1985. Yul Brynner is dying. Everyone knows it now, but for 2 hours tonight, he was immortal. I don't believe in God, but I believe in what I saw. A human being transcending mortality through sheer will. He made it. 5,000 performances, the promise kept. I will never see anything like this again. Because this wasn't acting. This was a man showing us what the human spirit can endure when it has a reason. Mary Beth Polly said years later, "I danced with a dying man for 47 performances, and every night he lifted me, spun me, never dropped me, never faltered." How? Maybe when you've survived what he survived, death doesn't intimidate you, it just pisses you off. This story reminds us that the body is mortal, but the will is not. Discipline isn't about the easy days, it's about the impossible ones. And sometimes, the greatest performances aren't the ones critics applaud. They're the ones where you simply refuse to quit. Yul Brynner didn't defeat cancer. Cancer killed him, but he defeated it in the only way that mattered. He decided when to stop. Not the disease, not the doctors, not death. Him. And for those final 500 performances, every night he walked onto that stage was a statement, "You can kill me, but you can't make me quit." He died 11 days after performance 5,000, having finished what he started, having kept his promise, having shown the world what discipline looks like when everything else is gone. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe. Because behind every legend, there's a moment when they chose not to be human, when they chose to be something more. And that choice changes everything.